Welcome to The Secret Place with Bennett. Devotions for hungry hearts and searching souls.
Are you grieved today when you listen to the news? How do you help a hurting world? How do you deal with all of the needs around you, whether they're your own or the people you love or the people that are in the world that you don't even know but you feel so much for? Well, we're going to talk about that today. This is Bennett, and you are in The Secret Place with me this morning. I'm hailing from a sunny day in South Florida, and I have a very short passage to read to you from something called The Sacred Enneagram by Christopher Hewarts. He says this: solitude, stillness, and silence are the corrections to the compulsions that come out of our intelligence centers, our head, our heart, and our gut. Together, they make us whole. Together, they bring us home. True contemplatives aren't super spiritual elites or those committed ascetics who completely withdraw from the world. True contemplatives don't simply nurture their inner life in isolation. Contemplative spirituality is critical for everyone, especially in an age when we are constantly interrupted by digital distractions. Contemplation invites us to return to the present moment where God can be encountered. The true contemplative is any normal person who allows deep soul work to lead to a broad, outward-facing transformation. That's the beauty of contemplative practice. We enter it as individuals, yet emerge enriched and equipped, part of a larger community, more capable of serving the needs of a hurting world. It's so important when we think about that I don't know if I want to call it a balance, but the interaction between the inner life and the inner journey that we must make and an outer view of helping people, being there for others, and being in community. It's much easier to kind of like find ourselves in a camp of one or the other, being that activist, whether it's for social justice or it's for just hurting, helping the hurting in our community wherever we see them, in our families and whatnot. Or it's much easier to just kind of go inward and live more in isolation, kind of a monkish life, But these two, they're not opposites. They need to come together, and we need to find some equanimity between the inner and the outer, paying attention to both. It's an interesting thing as we learn that prayer is more than just supplication and making a list and talking to God about the things we need or the people we want blessings for, or the blessings we want or the needs we have. When we start to really zero in on the fact that prayer is something that we could do without ceasing, it's more about communion with God. When we enter into that contemplative space where we can sit in a bit of silence or a bit of stillness, some solitude, we begin to learn that our inner self becomes enriched and, I don't want to say more solid, but we become more aware, self-aware of this inner life that we have, and it becomes more of a rich inner life rather than kind of a vacant one that has a heavy echo in it. You know what I mean. When we get there in that place, and contemplation helps us do that, getting into that quiet place, communing with our Lord and kind of bringing ourselves before Him fully and honestly and openly, and not being afraid, or at least taking any fear or intimidation we might feel and bringing it honestly before God and say, this is how I feel, this is who I am. Meet me here, Father. Meet me here, mighty God of the universe. When we get to that place where we're doing that regularly, and that becomes less intimidating and more fruitful, more beautiful, something that we run to rather than something that we hesitate about or run from, something starts to happen. Something starts to happen that starts to bring us outward in a different way. It's like the self-awareness and the well-being that happens from that communing with God on the inside begins to flow out for others and toward others who are hurting. And the grief that we might feel on the inside that we don't know what to do with when we watch the news, or we read a meme, or we hear of someone who is, tragically just been dealt such a blow, we find ways to let that inner richness come out. And if you're not kind of a big extrovert looking for things to do, to let that inner energy flow out, it doesn't matter, because it's so real. It begins just to kind of bleed out, if you will, from that inner place of richness into care and concern for others, into a text or a phone call or an email or a letter, or reaching out into the community and looking to just be kinder, just be more sensitive to others around us, whether it's on the road or at the supermarket. It's very, very practical, this contemplative prayer. It turns into a contemplative life. And why I read you this Christopher Hewart's passage is because he says it so perfectly. We tend to think contemplation is just for monks. It's the monastic life. But it's not. It's really not. That's why I've said it before. I love St. Francis. I've always been drawn to St. Francis of Assisi, because he took what was the monastic way of the first millennium, and he moved that in a very active, different direction, taking that deep communion and prayer and solitude with God into the streets. It was like into compassion, into his every action and every encounter with lepers, with all kinds of folks, and really, to my mind, exemplified for us that really, well, I'm not going to say perfect balance. I think he was, how dare I say this, but I think he was a little not balanced. He was overboard. I don't know anybody who could truly be exactly like Francis of Assisi, but nor do we want to be. Do you want to be? You need to be exactly you. I need to be exactly me. That's the fun part of knowing God and walking this walk of faith, is that we learn how to be exactly who he made us in the fullness of that, in a greater fullness of that, instead of feeling the shame for who we are, or protection, or uncertainty, and all those things that all of us deal with. So anyway, just let me leave you with that short encouragement. I hope it's an encouragement today to press in to that in-between place, between action and what we normally think of as prayer, attitude and action, that place where it's a contemplative place, where we are learning to press in to the inward life and letting it flow out outwardly to an active, well-balanced life. I am so glad you came today and showed up to listen to this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll leave a comment or subscribe to The Secret Place with Steffa Bennett. Have a really wonderful day. Thanks for being here. Bye now.
Breathe, listen, and receive. Take a moment to soak it all in. Until next time.